Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, Jeff.
Yes?
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Cool.
We finally have all of the episodes of Tower of Doom.
Yes.
Our playthrough of Tower of Doom on YouTube.
Yes. So go to YouTube and type in, it's called FriendQuest?
Yeah, FriendQuest is the channel. We don't have an official YouTube.
Yeah, it's not like
URL.
youtube.com/FriendQuest or
no,
anything yet.
but you can find it. If you type in FriendQuest and Tower of Doom, you'll find it.
Yes, yeah.
And if you guys like it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think of it. It's a few recordings that we've done. There's another game that we played that I want to put up as well.
Another D&D arcade game.
Yeah, it's basically the same
same engine.
Yeah,
same type of game.
Yeah, same creators and all that. It's just it's the Mist over Mystara.
Yes, it's the sequel.
Yeah, or Shadow over Mystara.
Shadow over Mystara. Yeah. Tell your friends about it if you like it. Yeah. We'll be happy to make more when we have time. And
yeah. So go and check that out.
Cool. And if you go to our blog, which is interpartyconflict.blogspot.com, we now have a PayPal donate button. So if anybody out there would like to give us some money so that we can make the podcast better, a lot of work goes into this. We would love to make it better, but that would take more time, more money and everything. If anybody would like to donate even just like $1 or something, go ahead there. Go to, like I said, interpartyconflict.blogspot.com. Check out our PayPal donate button. Throw us $1, throw us a couple bucks, and we will take that and we'll make the podcast better with it.
Yeah, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Yes, very, very much so. All right. So, Jeff, I want you to take one of these D20s right here.
Yeah.
And I want you to make a listen check.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Listen isn't a skill anymore. Make a perception check.
Perception check. I got an 11.
Got an 11. Okay. Yeah. Well,
pretty good roll for me, honestly.
With that 11, you are able to hear over some of the noise. You're in a tavern. Just a normal day at the tavern, hanging out with your buddies.
Yeah, just having a drink.
And you overhear some adventurers saying that they had a very, very difficult encounter with some monsters because they were following some rumors about a very, very powerful magic item.
Ooh.
And so you're able to hear this. You sort of listen in.
Yeah, I'm going to lean in a little bit.
You lean in, and you hear them say that this magic item was very, very powerful, but it was very well guarded.
Ooh.
And you listen, you keep hoping they'll say where it was. And then just as they're about to leave, you hear one of them say, "Too bad that magic item was in the dragon's hoard."
Oh, darn.
So the Dragon's Hoard item that we have today was submitted by Damien via email. And this item, I think it's a pretty cool one. It is, it's one of the ones that, so we've had a lot of different types of magic items on here. Some of them are very varied in what they do. Some of them are much more specific. This one is pretty specific in what it does, but it's actually pretty powerful. I would say it's one of the more powerful items that's been submitted. Most of them just do something weird that, might have like really big ramifications, like the Beholder Dreams one, where it's like, I don't know, we figured out you could like make a shadow that has all your magic items or something like that.
Yeah, duplicate your equipment or something like that.
But this one, it just does a lot of damage, but in a cool way. So we'll get to that. And if we have any Gaelic listeners out there, I apologize if I butcher this pronunciation, but I believe, after asking Damien how it was pronounced, I believe this magic item is called Doaton's Breath.
Okay.
So this is a legendary great axe that has a haft wrapped in a dark blood red leather with black accents. The counterweight down at the bottom of the handle is an open dragon's claw that looked like at one point it was clutching an object.
Ooh.
The blade itself is pretty simple, with 2 long straight blades that attach to the haft at a sharp angle at the bottom and a flourish outwards at the top. I'm trying to picture what that would look like. I'm sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of imagining it, but I'll take his description and just leave it like that.
Sure.
It's an axe, and it probably looks pretty cool. But
it's a cool looking axe.
Right. The face of the blade is covered in draconic runes that translate into an oath to Doatan, the ancient red dragon god.
Ooh.
Yes. Now, Mechanically speaking, this is a +1 great axe. So you get a +1 to attack and damage rolls with it. But also, while you're attuned to the weapon, your hit point maximum increases by 1 for each level you have. So it's like your constitution is 2 higher.
Nice.
Also, you can use a bonus action to speak the magic axe's command word, causing flames to erupt from the blade. These flames shed a bright light in a 40-foot radius and dim light in an additional 40 feet. When the axe is ablaze, it deals an extra 2d6 fire damage to any target it hits.
Cool.
The flames last until you use a bonus action to speak the command word again or until you drop the axe. So it's like, +1 flaming great axe would be in, I think in this edition, is it only 1d6 or is it 2d6? Now I feel like it should check. Whatever, I won't check. So anyway, it's a +1 great axe that does an extra 2d6 fire damage when it is on fire.
Sure.
But as you level up, it becomes more powerful.
Cool.
When you reach level 8, the +1 to attack becomes a +2, and the fire damage increases to 4d6. So, becomes quite a bit more powerful.
Yeah,
and then at level 16, the +2 becomes a +3, and the fire damage increases to 6d6.
That's pretty good.
And also, when you reach level 20, so the pinnacle of your adventuring career, the fire damage this axe deals is also dealt to 2 additional adjacent creatures.
Very cool.
So it's not just that you're hitting the guy with a flaming axe. You hit him, and it explodes in flame.
Yeah.
And does damage to the guys standing on either side of him.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. It's almost like in 3rd edition, there was like a flaming burst weapon that did more damage on a crit.
Yeah.
I feel I'm kind of picturing this the same way, but it's not just on a crit. It's like when you reach level 20, it does that every time you attack with it. So it hits everybody around them.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't without drawback, though. This is a cursed weapon. What this means is, so when you attune yourself to it, the curse extends to you. As long as you remain cursed, so as long as you remain attuned to it, and I'm guessing you probably can't get the curse removed while you're attuned to it, you are unwilling to part with the axe, keeping it within reach at all times. You also have disadvantage on attack rolls made with any other weapon, unless no foe is within 60 feet that you can see or hear. So, you can practice with another weapon, but if there's an enemy nearby, you're going to take disadvantage with another weapon other than the axe. Also, whenever a hostile creature damages you while the axe is in your possession, now not just when you're wielding it, but if it's in your possession, you have to make a DC 15 wisdom check or go berserk. While berserk, you must use your action each round to attack the nearest enemy to you with the axe. If you make additional attacks as part of the attack action, you use those extra attacks. So you can't just attack them once, you have to attack them with all your attacks. And you move to attack the nearest enemy after you fell your current target. So if you have, let's say you have 3 attacks. If you attack twice and kill the guy, you then have to move and use your 3rd attack. You can't
Right.
I don't know.
You got to keep going.
Yeah. So this would probably be a bad idea if you're ever trying to keep someone alive.
Sure.
Keep an enemy alive. This makes that difficult.
Yeah.
And then if you have multiple possible targets, you choose one at random. You are berserk until you start your turn with no enemies within 60 feet of you that you can see or hear. So as long as there are enemies, you're going to keep attacking them. This is good because it's not as bad as, say, the 3rd edition Frenzied Berserker. The 3rd edition Frenzied Berserker, they had a Frenzy ability, which was similar to the Barbarian's Rage ability, but it stacked. The downside being that while you were in Frenzy, as long as the Frenzy was going, you had to attack every round, even if there were no enemies. If you killed the last enemy and you weren't able to drop out of Frenzy, because dropping out of Frenzy took a will save or something, you then had to attack one of your party members instead.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. This doesn't do that.
So, yeah, not quite as bad. Although I think it'd be cool if, somehow this, item became, intelligent in some way and, try to start to convince you that, other things are your enemy or something like that.
Yeah. Let's say there's a Dragonborn in the party, like a gold Dragonborn.
Ooh. Because,
this is a red dragon god's axe.
Yeah.
Red dragons don't like gold dragons.
Yeah, they're pretty evil guys.
Yeah.
So
that could be pretty interesting. I especially like the part of the curse where you are unwilling to part with the axe.
Yeah.
I think that's something cool because, there could be social situations where you are not allowed to bring your weapon.
I wonder if it even goes so far if it somehow gets out of your possession. I mean, do you lose attunement to a magical weapon in any way?
Nope.
It's like once you're attuned to it.
Once you're attuned to it, you're attuned to. I mean,
until you attune to something else or something like that.
Yeah, you can probably break your attunement if you want to, but
yeah, I don't know.
I
mean, it might go so far as if it gets taken away from you or something, you guys get your party gets held captive and your weapons get taken away. You kind of you might even go crazy or something like that trying to get it back. You'd be like, all right, we got to get this thing back. And they're like, we need to save ourselves. No, we need to get my axe.
Yeah.
Right now.
This kind of reminds me of, so I've mentioned that I've done some fiction writing, and there's a story that I'm writing this. It's on indefinite hiatus for a while, but one of the characters in there was a tiefling fighter, and he had a great sword or some sort of sword, and something that I haven't gotten far enough in the story for this to be important yet, but something that I thought was interesting that I have planned for that character is that, so, if anybody asks him this great sword, it belonged to his father, as his father's sword is passed down, whatever, he's unwilling to part with it. He's not gonna give it up for any reason. I mean, if he has to, he can give it up to somebody to repair it or sharpen it or whatever.
Right.
But something that I would eventually have come out in the story is that that's not actually his father's sword. In fact, there's going to be a point where the characters do find out some stuff about his father. His father was a gladiator, and they're going to find out, no, his father fought with I don't know, a spear and or a trident and net or something like that. And when they bring it up, he's like, no, I don't know that poster of him with a trident and net, with a net and trident. No, that must be, I don't know, artistic license or something. No, he used this sword. And then he eventually runs into one of his old adventuring buddies that he started adventuring with, and they're like, hey, how's that sword treating you that you got way back when we started adventuring? And he's like, what are you talking about? No, I've had this sword was my father's. I played with this sword when I was a little kid. And they're like, no, dude, you found that sword our first adventure. What are you talking about? You killed that goblin and you got the sword from the goblin. And he's like, no, man, you're crazy. And basically it's going to turn out that the sword is cursed.
Oh.
It not anything particularly detrimental, just he is unwilling, he's unable to willingly part with it.
Right, and
unless he knows he's going to get it back. So he could not ever get rid of the sword. He couldn't ever want to get rid of the sword. Yeah. And if someone could take it from him, but if they did, he would have to use every fiber of his being to get it back.
Right. So it's kind of a way of his brain justifying this need to keep it around. It's his brain is the curse has basically tricked his brain into thinking this is something very, very precious to me.
Exactly.
So that's the way it kind of manifests itself is in oh no, this is my father's sword. I have to protect this with my life.
Exactly. So he's even fabricated memories of playing with it when he was a kid, and it's no, man, has got that a year ago.
That's pretty cool.
And I've even, because I don't remember at what point in the creative process this curse came to mind, but there were a couple parts in the writing that I did do where some sort of crazy thing would happen and somehow he still had his sword afterwards. Huh. You would have thought, oh, well, how did he not lose his sword in that big explosion or whatever? And it's well, that's part of the curse, is that if it is physically possible for him to not lose the sword, he doesn't lose it.
Right, he finds a way. Yeah,
I might have even eventually had it be that even if he threw the sword away, it would show up in his possession again. Huh. And that's how it is.
Sure.
So anyway, that's kind of what that makes me think of. I think a curse like that part of the curse, I like curses that are innocuous, that might just have some sort of a small role-playing implication, but not necessarily a mechanical one.
Right, yeah, it's not going to set everyone back or anything like that, but it is going to, it's going to just bring that extra little bit of, intrigue into the story. It's why does he carry that thing around? He's always looking at it.
Right. So yeah, I think this is a neat item. Apparently, according to Damien, this is a legendary artifact in his campaign. Mm-hmm. So I think that fits.
Yeah, because it's fairly powerful, and I mean, the downside isn't great, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah. You put it in the hands of the right character, and that's perfectly fine.
Right.
If your character is somebody who's going to be attacking anyway, you can give it to a fighter or a barbarian or something like that. that's not really going to be changing much.
Yeah.
It might, it'll just make it a little bit more interesting than the reason why they're attacking.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for this week's Dragon's Horde.
Okie dokie.
If somebody wanted to submit items for the Dragon's Horde, or if they want to submit questions for us to discuss, Jeff, how would they do so?
They could do that by sending us an email at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
All right. So let's go ahead and get into some questions.
All right. So this is a question we've had for a little while, and we do apologize for putting it on the back burner for so long, but sometimes that just happens.
I'll explain why in a minute.
Sure. So this comes from Agent Elman, and this was posted on our given to us on Reddit.
Yeah, it was submitted to us on Reddit.
Yeah. When do you give a character a bonus for a cool idea or action that is not covered in the book?
Now, the reason that we haven't answered this for a long time is actually because the wording is a little bit, we're not quite sure exactly what he was asking. I suppose I could have just sent him a message back on Reddit asking what he meant, but we've had it for so long.
Yeah, we've been. It's kind of been. We'll have some questions ready for an episode, and sometimes we go on and on about one question that we don't get to the other ones. And it's happened one too many times with this one. And
each time I think we've read the question a bit differently.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like Gabe said, at this point it's been so long that like it might even be just awkward to even contact him.
Maybe.
And be like,
then again, would it be awkward for him to be listening to the podcast and then now they're talking about how I worded my question poorly?
No, it's not poorly.
It's not poorly.
It's not poorly worded. It's just like
there's just a few different ways to read it.
Yeah. So again, it's when you give a character a bonus for a cool idea or action. So the bonus could be something like extra experience.
Yes.
So like somebody does something really cool or really smart or just like they came up with something very clever or something that the DM didn't even think of, but is like, yeah, that's awesome. You give them a little bonus experience.
Yeah.
And like bonus experience can be cool. I mean, like, it makes the player feel good and it might put them over the edge for a level up that might not have happened at that point.
Yeah.
And that depends on the group because some groups are very strict on exactly how much experience they get.
Right. Some groups don't even use experience.
Right.
It's just like, okay, after this session, everybody levels up.
Right. Yeah. It's like, after, it's like you might go every 2 adventures, you level up as long as there's been at least some fighting in one of them or something like that. So,
right. When we were doing our 4th edition Shackled City campaign, I don't think I was giving you guys experience. I think at one point I just said like, okay, at this point you guys are going to level up and so on and so on.
Right.
But because I do like to give a player some sort of like a semi-tangible reward for doing something cool, I don't remember how it started, but eventually we had one of those little cup holders that when you go to like a fast food restaurant, they give you like a, recyclable
oh gosh
thing that holds like four cups.
Just a little paper cup holder.
We had one of those and it eventually was like, okay, Jeff, you get an experience point, but it's not just you get an experience point. There was one experience point that had to be passed around to whoever did something cool. So that cup holder represented the experience point.
Yeah.
So like if you did something cool, okay, Jeff, you get the experience point and I hand it to you. And then somebody else does something. Okay, Dave, you did something cool. Jeff, give me that. Here, Dave, you get the experience point. And then we eventually made the cup holder into a hat.
Yeah. I think we kind of like folded it in a way so it would fit on somebody's head and then we like decorated it or something.
Right.
Basically picture like the worst like Burger King crown, like paper crown ever.
Yes.
I think I like grabbed like coffee for Dave and I or something like that. And
that's probably what it was.
But I mean, like it's just like like it could be something as simple as that, like a little hat for somebody to wear to be like, haha, I did a cool thing.
Sure, even if it's just like you did something cool, so I'm at least gonna make you laugh.
Right? Yeah. It'll and then. It's something that people will, the party will think of fondly,
Yeah.
It'll just be a little gag, but it's fun.
And I think one of the later sessions we were playing at Dave's house and we had forgotten the cup holder at home.
Oh yeah.
So instead I have a little dice bag that is a mimic. It's like a little chest that like has like eyes and teeth and a big tongue that sticks out and you put your dice in there. And so what I instead did was whenever you got the quote unquote experience point, I would have you reach into the dice bag and like, sometimes you reach in and nothing happens, but then other times the mimic attacks you.
Yeah, it's just so a little gag just to kind of bring a little little fun to the experience.
Right. So I guess if that's how we're reading it, the question then is, when do you give a character this bonus? Like, when do you give that experience point, or when do you give the character something cool? In 5th edition, for example, you can use inspiration.
Oh, right.
As
Yeah.
that.
I forgot about that mechanic.
Yeah. So in 5th edition, with inspiration specifically, the intention is that you give a player, basically, you give a player inspiration anytime they do something character-wise, that, like, role-playing wise, that might put them at a disadvantage. Lowercase d disadvantage, not game mechanic disadvantage. So, like, when you make your character background, you give your character traits, you give your character a flaw, a bond, an ideal. You look at those, and let's say a character, their flaw is that, I don't know, they're like deathly afraid of something. Then anytime they use that to put their character in danger, like they stick to their character background in a way that disadvantages them, you'd give them inspiration, which allows them to once give themselves advantage on something. So they're putting themselves at a disadvantage, so you give them a reward for it. So
right.
That's how 5th edition intends for you to use this kind of a mechanic.
I really like that mechanic, and I guess I forgot about it because, like, the last campaign we played was 4th edition.
Yeah,
so, like, I completely forgot about that. I feel like that's a really good incentive for doing, like, role-playing stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you're, like, I guess if the DM's more, like, a little bit more, like, gives it out a little bit more freely, that'd be a cool way to, like, try to keep your character, like, in character, basically.
Yeah.
Like, to keep yourself going. That's like, okay, like, you pick those personality traits, and you can be using those, like, you can basically, like, okay, I'm like, use those like abilities almost.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, so you look at it like an ability that you want to use. It's like, okay, we're in this situation where we're talking to a tavern, like a tavern keeper or something like that, when you're trying to get information out of them, and, like, I don't know, one of your personality traits is that you're very mean to, like, strangers or something like that.
Okay.
So one of your flaws is, like, you don't trust people or anything like that.
Yeah.
So you might try to, like, play to that. And, like, so every time you do something like that in a role-playing situation, you get an inspiration point, and then you can use it for advantage. I feel like the next time we play for 5th edition, I want to go into that and, like, look into that and see how much we can use it. I don't want to, like, I kind of want to abuse it in a way. Like, I want to find a way to abuse it to where it's fun, but not necessarily game breaking,
And here's the thing: you either have inspiration or you don't. You can't get it more than once.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you have to get it and then use it.
Gotcha.
So that then you can get it again.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So then there wouldn't really be a way to really abuse it. It's like,
you could just, like, every couple rounds do something to
sure,
do something and then use your inspiration, then do something else and use your inspiration, and so on.
Yeah, I guess, like, and I guess it'll be a little bit harder to, like.
Yeah, it would be hard to, and then we require work from the DM too.
Sure.
So yeah, it's not going to get abused because it requires both people to be working together to make it happen. But
so it's like it'd be hard to abuse, I guess. So I mean, like, at the very least, there's in that case there is a mechanic that kind of plays to this. But right. I mean, like. Again, he's asking when it's not covered in the book. Yeah.
So when it's something like, when I would just give out experience or whatever, or something like that, it kind of depends on what mood I'm in when I would give out something like this.
Sure.
There are times when a player comes up with an idea that you didn't think of, that, like, is some mechanic that is not a mechanic in the book. It's just like, hey, this is a cool idea I want to do. Can I do it? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm going to say, wow, that's a really cool idea. You get a bunch of experience, and let's figure out how to make this work. And it's going to work really well in your favor. Or, assuming the dice aren't bad, it's going to work out really well in your favor. Sometimes I will do that. Unfortunately, more often I would say, I'm going to be like, well, that's not something it's not that I didn't, the fact that I didn't plan for it isn't the problem. It's the fact that you're trying to get a result that is really, really powerful. So either I'm gonna try to discourage you from doing it. Unfortunately, I do that sometimes.
Sure.
Or I'll say you can do it, but it's gonna be really, really hard. Mm-hmm. I don't like that. I'm not really necessarily saying no. I do I don't like the fact that I kind of try to discourage stuff that I didn't plan for. Everybody has their flaws, and that's probably one of mine. I've gotten better about it. But if basically, whenever someone wants to do something that isn't covered in the book that might be really powerful, the way that I like to think of it is that in order to make an internally consistent world, which is always my goal, I'm always striving to be as consistent as possible. If what you're trying to do is easier than the options that are already in the book, then I'm not going to allow it. Because if it was easier, let's say, for example, you're fighting a bad guy, you just say, I just want to stab him in the eye so he's blind. If stabbing him in the eye is easier than just attacking him normally,
right,
everybody would do it.
Right.
If you just say, no, I just want to cut his head off. Can't I just roll to cut his head off? Well, I mean, you're kind of assumed to be doing that all the time.
Right. Yeah.
If it were easier to kill someone by quote unquote just cutting his head off, then everybody would just cut their head off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if what you're trying to do would be more effective than the options in the book, I'm going to try to discourage it definitely. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to try to make it so that it is appropriately difficult to do.
Sure.
So again, sometimes I'm just in a good mood and sometimes I will let you do something really cool. However, I do try to make it clear that if I am going to let you do something cool and easy, then I'm probably going to say, this is just going to be a one-time thing. Don't make this your bread and butter.
Yeah, like don't put it on your character sheet,
exactly.
It's just a thing that happened once.
There was a time I was playing, I don't remember who was DMing, but I know Jay was the player at the time. Jay was playing a character where he was playing a non-damaging sorcerer or wizard. Like all of his spells were like, he had spells that would like push you away or spells that would he had like a lot of force-based spells, one of which was called like Dolomar's Force Wave, and it did this big like blast of force in every direction that just pushed enemies away. It didn't do damage, but if an enemy was near you, it pushed them a certain number of squares away.
Sure.
At one point, he got the idea, hey, if I dump a bag of caltrops on myself as I'm casting the spell, would that work? And whoever was DMing at the time was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, go ahead and roll, I don't remember what he had him roll, but whatever he ended up doing, this ended up being so incredibly effective. It turned a non-damaging spell into like a, several D6 damaging spell against multiple enemies with no save. And Jay was like, okay, cool. And he just bought a whole bunch of caltrops, and that was his standard attack from that point
that was
on.
Just like, okay,
you would just wait into combat, dump caltrops, blast the spell. Okay, next round, dump caltrops, blast the spell.
Sure.
And that's where it becomes a problem. Like that is where I would be like, hold on a second. You're using a couple things that are not how they're intended, and that's not a problem. Like it's cool to come up with a neat way to use your abilities, but when it becomes more effective than either of the things combined with no downside, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
So I would try to discourage something like that.
Yeah. Did we talk about the help, the owl familiar with help?
Yes. Yeah, we covered that a few episodes
ago. The help action. It's kind of like that. Like
it is.
It's very similar. Like, and like we did kind of argue back and forth that if it was like, if it was balanced and like, it's definitely like overpowered, but it's not necessarily game breaking, that particular one.
Yeah. Like I don't think that was intended in the rules.
Right.
That being said, it has enough cost to it and it's easy enough to shut down if you have to.
Right. But that's still an example of taking two things, putting them together, and having me stronger than both of them.
That's a good point. Yeah,
they're stronger together than they are individually, or that sort of thing.
Yeah. So it's up to the DM when they want to give a character a bonus for something that they come up with that's not in the book. If you go ahead and let a player do something, that's not a problem. More often than not, I would say let a player do something cool. Mm-hmm. But if after the fact you think it might become a problem, and just tell the player, hey, don't do that anymore. Or if you do that again, I'm going to make it harder.
Right. Yeah. Don't be afraid to tell your players like, okay, this thing that we came up with or this house rule, or this thing that you came up with, or even something that's not even a house rule. Like it might just be a specific combination of feats and spells that they found that might just be a little too powerful or something, don't be afraid to say like, okay, we need to calm that down because like for balancing purposes.
Yeah.
Like,
and players be understanding
Yes.
if a DM is having difficulty running a game because of one of your abilities or because of a combination of abilities.
Yeah.
Being a DM is a hard thing.
Yeah.
It's not as easy for the DM to make an entire campaign around your character than it is for you to just pick a different option for your character.
Right.
It sucks when one of your abilities gets nerfed or whatever. That sucks. But if the DM thinks it's going to lead to a better game, then trust the DM.
Yeah.
Like you're putting your trust in the DM, and the DM is asking for your understanding and response.
And there can definitely be some compromise there because
Definitely.
if the thing that you come up with that ends up being a little overpowered, if that's just something that you thought was really cool and like the reason you were doing it wasn't necessarily because it was so powerful, you just liked the idea of it.
Yeah.
That can be easily compromised to like, okay, maybe we just make those caltrops do a little less damage or something like that.
Sure.
Or there's a save or something to that effect. You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're all people. We're all friends. Just try to make something that is as agreeable for both parties as possible.
Mm-hmm. Something that this kind of ties into. We have another question here. This is from Releel, and this was submitted on NWorld.
Yeah.
What was
NWorld.org.
.org? Okay.
So it's another message board. I've only gotten a few questions through there.
Okay. How do I deal with players who appear only to want to win?
Yeah, this is definitely this is a problem.
Yeah.
How much of a problem it is going to depend entirely on the people involved. So what I want to say first off is that there is no wrong way to play D&D. There is no wrong way to want to play D&D. Whether it is right or wrong for your group, however, that is a definite issue. If a player wants to treat D&D like something that their goal is to be better than everybody else, or their goal is to always win, that is not inherently wrong.
Right.
It's just a matter of whether that meshes with the rest of the group, as well as whether it meshes with the type of game that the DM wants to run.
Sure.
There are definitely going to be players that treat the game like it is something that they, the player, have to be better than. There are definitely going to be players that treat D&D like it is me versus the DM.
Yeah, D&D is not an e-sport. It is
correct.
Not obviously, but I mean, it's not competitive. It's in no way competitive.
Right.
Like there are competitions in it, but that's like, usually having to do with a story or something like that. You might have like a tournament or something.
Right.
But at its core, D&D is not a competitive game. It's a cooperative game. It is, and like that's not just between the players. That is between the players and the DM.
Right. Yeah. The DM is not your opponent.
Right.
I feel like we might have mentioned this in like one of our much earlier episodes.
Yeah, we've definitely. Yeah.
The DM is as much your opponent as the writer of a book is an opponent to the reader.
Sure. Yeah.
In that it's not.
Yeah.
Everybody is working together to get the game to the best possible conclusion. So that can be hard to understand, especially for a new player, especially for a player who is playing in a game has only played with DMs that have that attitude. Because don't get me wrong, a lot of DMs have the attitude of
sure.
I am going to kill some PCs because that makes me a good DM.
That's what D&D is all about.
Exactly.
Total party kill.
So it can be a hostile battleground all around. So you gotta look at what the group wants as their goal, what the DM wants as their goal. And so first you need to determine whether a player wanting to win is going to mesh with the group or not. If so, then no problem. I mean, like if you can run a game that is fun for the player who wants to win as well as fun for the other players, all the power to you. That's awesome. More often, I would say that's not really going to mesh well. So you have a few options. Your first option is to talk to the player and tell them, that's not really what this game is. You're not really supposed to be the best at everything. Like I've talked about my friend Nick before. Nick often played with the attitude of like, I want to be the best at everything.
Sure.
If there was somebody else who had a higher stealth skill. Nick wanted his stealth skill to be even higher than that. He also wanted to be a better fighter than the fighter. He also wanted to have the most hit points and so on.
Mm-hmm.
That's not inherently bad.
Right.
But it's when that attitude gets in the way of the rest of the group having fun. That's when it becomes bad. Everybody plays D&D for different reasons, especially if you've only played video games. Then definitely wanting to be the best is a natural thing.
Yeah.
You can't fault someone just for wanting to be the best or just for wanting to win. But it's when they put that ahead of the fun of the rest of the group.
Right.
Again, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So you can talk to the player, try to get them to see what it is that you want out of your game.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, do this outside of do not do this at the table.
Yeah. In most of the cases when you're talking to a player about a problem, do it in private.
Exactly. Do it in private. Do it after the game. If necessary, do it through email, through texts, whatever.
Yeah.
So just talk to the player. Try and get them try to get them to want what you want out of the game. Because when everybody wants the same thing out of the game goes so well.
Yeah.
If talking to them either isn't an option, if it doesn't work, or if it's not an option, like let's say you just, you really aren't good with confrontation, you really don't know how to get across to the player what you want, you might want to look at how can I tailor the game, not a lot, but how can I alter the game enough that this player can still get enjoyment and as well as everybody else.
Yeah, make like little tiny compromises.
Exactly. So you might want to maybe look at ways that you can put in little like contests and such in the game that the player can win.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to just give it to them, but if you can find out exactly what that player wants, if you can give it to them in a way that doesn't get in the way of the rest of the game, then that will make you a better DM and it will make the whole group have a better time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one time when this can be an issue. Let's say you have a player that is really good at min-maxing. They make a character that's really, really effective in combat. The initial thought might be, okay, well, I'll just throw more powerful monsters at them. That's one option, but that is not the solution. Because if you throw more powerful monsters at the party because of one player, that means the other players that are not as effective in combat are only going to get steamrolled.
Right.
If one player is able to kill all the monsters, with a hand tied behind his back, then everybody else that isn't able to do that, like they're going to get killed in one hit because you're throwing these super powerful monsters at this one player and they're all collateral damage.
Or at the very least, they're just going to feel ineffective.
Exactly.
They're going to feel like they're not contributing or anything.
Right. So you don't want to ever make the focus of the game you don't want to make it too focused on this one player. You still want to cater to all of the players. You don't ever want to give this one player too much time and attention.
Yeah. That's really what the issue is like, he wants to win. If you give that person that extra attention, that's going to exacerbate the problem. That's just going to make it worse. It probably not always, but it can be, it's probably an ego thing,
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be hard to get the right balance. It can be hard to figure out exactly how to incorporate everybody while also catering to specific players' needs. Mm-hmm. It can be difficult. Try your best. Talk to if I don't necessarily think you should make issues with a player public, but talk to each player and try to find out from each player what you can do to make the game better in every regard. Yeah. If talking to the player who wants to win doesn't work, if trying to cater to them doesn't, if they're still, after all of that, they still are treating it like it's a competition, they're still treating it like they are the only one whose needs are important, it may be, as a last resort, you may have to cut the player out of the group. You may have, because if they are not a fit for the group and all of the work that you've put in is not able to incorporate them into the group as much as everybody else, you may have to just cut them out of the group, in order to
and that's
keep it going.
That's never an easy thing, and it is incredibly hard when it's like if it's a friend or if the campaign's been going on for a long time and people have got to know them and things like that. So like that's why we say last resort, just because it can be really difficult, and it's it's not fun to to kick someone out of a a game group like
Yeah.
that. But I mean, like, if they're just not a fit and it's it's just not working for everybody else, you kind of have to.
Sometimes it's necessary. It
Yeah.
sucks, but it's necessary.
And and do it as do it as peacefully as possible.
Yeah.
Obviously, try not to burn any bridges if they are your friends or anything like that. So.
Right.
But again, that's why it's so difficult. Is like you don't want to you don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
Exactly. Yeah, and you don't want to add to the stereotype of gamers having poor social skills
Sure.
by making your first response when a social difficulty comes up to kick that
them
person out of the group.
Yeah.
So yeah, try first to talk to them. Try second to work with them, and try to work to make the game as enjoyable for everybody as possible. And if absolutely necessary, if they are just not going to fit in the game that you want to run, sometimes you got to just cut them out.
Hey, you playing a barbarian over there? Nah, none of that crap here. You get out of here. Sorry about that. Yeah, he's been on my nerves since the beginning of the campaign. Barbarians I just can't handle them.
To be fair, a lot of DMs when a player does something that they are not familiar with, like, I don't know how to handle rogues.
Sure.
There's like, I just won't allow rogues. You can't play a rogue because I don't know how to play rogue. And
right.
that is a problem.
Yeah.
Your first reaction if there's something you don't understand, it shouldn't be to ban it. Also, it shouldn't be to like make up a new, like if a player wants an option that isn't in the book, don't just make your first reaction to make a new option. Look at the options that are there and see what you can do with the options that are there.
Yeah.
If your first reaction every time you don't know how to do something, if your first reaction is to make up a new rule, you're never going to learn how to use the rules that are there. There is so much you can do within the game, within the rules, that a lot of people's house rules could have been done within the rules if they tried.
Right.
But they didn't bother. They just like, and we'll just make a house rule for it.
Right. We'll just buy a binder and
Right. Sorry, that's kind of a tangent, but your first reaction should not be just to cut something out. It should be to find a way to make it work.
All right. Okay. So, this is from Nicholas P. Hi, Nick.
And that's not the Nick that I was talking about.
This is different.
Nicholas P. the frequent contributor.
Right. I'm just saying hi because he's always there.
Yes.
Hello. This is through email, and it's what is your opinion on evil campaigns?
There's lots to this. This is a pretty good question. Now, the question I have to ask is, what is the difference between a quote unquote evil campaign and a campaign where the players are evil?
Right.
Maybe there isn't a difference, but in general, I think the idea of an evil campaign is bad. And I'll tell you why. If you say, okay, guys, we're gonna make a dark campaign where there's probably gonna be some shady stuff. There's gonna be, some like some intrigue. You can be whatever alignment you want. There's gonna be some stuff that's underhanded and so on. That's one thing. And you will probably end up with player characters that are evil. Mm-hmm. Probably gonna end up with player characters that are criminals. But there's a lot of potential if that's your approach. If you instead say, okay, guys, let's play an evil campaign. Mm-hmm. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to have a guy that's chaotic evil and tries to kill the party members. You're going to have a guy that's neutral evil and is like a psychopath, and he's going to kill and or steal from everybody he comes across on the road. You're going to end up with player characters that are not in any way realistic or consistent within the world, and all in all are harmful to the gaming experience.
Right. You're basically like, they're going to be characters that in like a, well, not necessarily real world situation, but like within the world that you're playing in most situations, they're going to end up dead because people are going to be like, no, we can't have this.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not the real world, but there are civilized societies within most D&D worlds. So these people are going to be dealt with pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be, imprisoned, there's always going to be like people hunting them down or something, they're not going to get away with it forever, basically. Right. Saying let's do an evil campaign basically feels like to me it's like giving everybody a free pass to just be a jerk.
Exactly.
To just do all the like super selfish things that, you know, some characters and players are going to do at one point or another. Like, you know, like you were telling me earlier that like most characters are in their way selfish.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely. So I think that a lot of this comes from the fact that a lot of players don't understand what it means to be evil.
What it truly be. Sorry.
Most people, okay, you know, there's a little secret here. There are quite a few evil people in real life. Mm-hmm. I would say that the alignment chart, you know, lawful good, lawful neutral, lawful evil, neutral good, neutral evil, chaotic good, chaotic neutral, chaotic evil. I would say that's probably a pretty good representation of the real world. Mm-hmm. There are people that are lawful good. There's probably close to an equal amount of people that are chaotic evil. Chaotic evil people don't walk around killing and stealing and destroying everything they come across.
Right.
If they did, they wouldn't be on the streets. Yeah. They wouldn't be alive. There are evil people in real life, but they don't do what evil PCs tend to do. Mm-hmm. Now, before I go any further, I should probably mention, when I say that, I'm not saying that every evil PC is going to do X or every evil campaign is going to do Y. What I'm saying is the general assumption. A good role player, a good D&D player is not going to conform to any of these things that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the good players because those are the vast minority. I'm talking about the vast majority of players who play evil characters or play in evil campaigns. When the majority of players play an evil character, they think, oh, cool, my character has no inhibitions. Well, no. In real life, if someone is evil, they have to have inhibitions or else they're going to be put in prison. You don't walk around killing people because you get put in jail or you get killed in response. Mm-hmm. As such, in D&D, you shouldn't act the same way either. There's chaotic evil, and then there's chaotic stupid.
Right.
So I feel like when you say that you're going to run an evil campaign, if you put it as, let's run an evil campaign, you are probably assuming that it's going to be a stupid campaign, not an evil campaign. Because here's the thing. Like you were saying, Jeff, I mentioned to you earlier that most players, when they play, most player characters are working in their own self-interest.
Right.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Yes, you might be lawful good. There's always the paladin that when he, finishes the quest says, oh no, I couldn't take your reward. I would immediately put it back into the charity or whatever. Like I did this for the cause of good.
Right.
There's always that guy.
Yeah.
But most players are already working to further themselves. Mm-hmm. They're not doing... You wouldn't say, we're running a good campaign, because most campaigns, although they may outwardly seem like you're doing good deeds, you're still taking that reward. You're doing it to become more powerful. You're not doing it for the cause of good.
Yeah.
You just happen to be doing things that are benefiting other people.
Yeah, you're an adventurer. You're going on adventures. That's your motivation.
You are playing a selfish character most of the time.
Yeah.
So whether you are good or evil, your actions are still going to be the same. So when you play an quote unquote evil campaign, like you were saying, Jeff, it's just kind of, it's like, it feels like it's giving the players license to just be a jerk.
Yeah.
You're already going to be acting selfish. So now you're going to be acting selfish, but I'm playing an evil character, so I guess I'll be a jerk too.
Right. Yeah.
I guess I will. Oh, he's offering me 10 gold. I won't just try to haggle. I'll haggle and then threaten to kill his child unless he complies.
Right.
No, that's not.
Yeah. So
you are not a very effective evil character if you are that outward in the fact that you are evil.
Yeah. And that could go even further to where like an evil character wouldn't necessarily like cooperate with his party members.
Yeah.
And once you get rid of the cooperation in a cooperative game like D&D, the game
just falls apart.
Yeah, the game just falls apart. So like when there might be like a selfish rogue who like tries to steal a little bit more of the earnings or something like that, and like little things here and there. But once you put the word evil into everybody's minds, like, okay, well, I'm just going to be a jerk and try to take all the gold. No, I want all the gold.
Exactly.
And then and then there's and then there's conflict.
Right.
Not the ding kind, but the womp womp kind.
Yes. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about what it means, like I've been talking about, what it means to play an evil character. A lot of people think, if you have an evil character and a lawful good, like let's say you have a chaotic evil character and a paladin in a group, like a lawful good paladin, they're not going to get along. They're going to fight each other. Mm-hmm. Little secret here, that's not because the character is evil. That's because the character is a jerk.
Sure, yeah.
You can play an evil character in a group of good characters. Yeah. That inherently is not going to lead to inter-party conflict. Right. Ding. It's going to lead to just, the party having different views. Because here's the thing. When I would say most, like, quote unquote, evil campaigns that I've heard of, the evil characters fight amongst themselves too. Mm-hmm. It's not because one of them is good and one of them is evil. It's because one or more of them are a jerk. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they're going to be more willing to fight with other people within the party.
Yeah.
So it's not the fact that you're evil that makes you a jerk. It's just the fact that you're a jerk. So pointing out that you're going to be an evil campaign, I think, is just giving the players license to be a jerk.
Yeah. I think one way to think about it, I was thinking about, like, when you were talking about, like, there are people, they're just like NPCs and stuff that are chaotic evil, and they're not running around, just slitting people's throats or anything like that. Way to think about it is, like, in like the D&D world, there are like creatures that are just evil. Here's one of my explanations for that. It's like that seems silly where it's like something's not just born evil. Well, it's not. It's an orc, like, growing up in orc society where, killing your superior is a way to, gain. That's a
legitimate way to gain status.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, that's okay to them. And, or rather the writers of D&D, but us as a collective, group of, a civilization or whatever, like, have decided, like, okay, that's what evil is killing people, doing mean things like that. But in an orc society, that's just kind of how things work. Yeah. So yeah, like when you look at, like, a stat block of a monster or something like that, and it's like, it's chaotic evil. They're all chaotic evil. Like, it's like, that's not necessarily, they're not born that way. Maybe in the extreme cases of, like, demons and devils, it might be it might be some force of their existence. That, but it's easier for a monster like a demon or a devil to do evil things than, say, like an elf or a human, because an elf or a human is going to be in an elf or human civilization where, like, things like that are looked down upon, but they still want to do them because they're evil. Yeah, they're not going to just go around just, like, killing people. They might, like, they're going to play along. They're going to cooperate. So in the same way as an evil character, in a party, they're going to still want to cooperate. Like, even if there are chaotic evil and they're in a party with a lawful good, like, paladin even, they're still going to want to kind of play along. Cause, like, maybe they want to, become an evil overlord in the future. But for right now, they're going to tag along and gain some power while on the adventures with this lawful good guy.
Yeah. Yeah. No evil overlord ever got to where he was by playing his hand too early.
Right. Unless he was somehow just, like, born crazy powerful.
Well, I guess, yeah. So a thing to remember is that evil people very, very rarely consider themselves evil.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Most, like I've mentioned before, I believe this was a quote from Chris. Mm-hmm. It was the scariest villain is a paladin. Right. Because you are facing someone who, although their views are different than yours, they think that what they're doing is 100% right. And they will fight that much harder to make it happen. Yeah. They won't give up. A paladin won't give up because he's facing resistance. Whereas someone who is like, someone who is just trying to do something to gain power might give up and seek power elsewhere. A paladin isn't going to be like, well, I guess this demon, he's just too tough. I guess I'll just let him do his thing. No, the paladin is going to keep fighting until he dies.
Yeah.
In the process. So the most evil people, whether they are evil or just conflicting with your own views, they think that what they're doing is right. They aren't going to consider themselves good. So just once again, if you make a campaign that is an evil campaign, you're kind of saying, okay, well, all of us are we're making characters where the first facet of that character is that is evil. Mm-hmm. Then everything else is going to be following that. It's not going to be a believable character. It's not going to be, well, I'm a dude and I'm also evil.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I'm evil and I'm also a dude.
I guess this isn't like a thing that's always going to happen. There probably is a good example of an evil campaign.
I can even say, so when I played as Ichi, when the campaign first started, I don't remember if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast, but Ichi he started out chaotic neutral. He eventually became true neutral because I learned that chaotic neutral is the worst alignment. But when the campaign started, there was another guy in the group who was, I believe, a neutral good fighter rogue. There was either neutral or either true neutral or chaotic neutral druid. And then there was a cleric who I found out several adventures after we started, I found out that he was lawful evil. I had no idea he was lawful evil until I glanced over at his character sheet one day and saw lawful evil written at the top. Because he was not walking around stabbing people, walking around taking things. No. Those people that he wanted stabbed, he would convince the party to go stab them. That thing that he wanted to steal, he would convince the party, hey, this is a thing that we need. We should go get this. And then we would go get it, and then he would reap the benefits for it. He was so manipulative. And then once I realized he was lawful evil, I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
We have been doing a lot of shady stuff lately.
Right. And then as the campaign went on, eventually the druid and the fighter rogue died as a result of Ichi, something that Ichi did. So, yeah. Anyway, so those characters died and were replaced with a lawful evil sorcerer and a neutral evil rogue. So eventually the party was 3/4 evil. And then Ichi, who was true neutral. And so it was, I guess, some people might look at it and say, oh, well, that's an evil campaign. Because a lot of the things that we did were dark. A lot of the things we did were shady, were underhanded. But I never considered it an quote unquote evil campaign because we weren't doing stuff because we were evil. We weren't doing stuff because, it's the bad thing to do. We were working in our self-interest exactly like we were when, a quarter of the party was good and half the party was neutral. It wasn't a matter of the party's alignment wasn't why we did the things we did. We did the things that we did to gain power, to gain money, to gain reputation. The same reasoning that we had before the party was mostly evil.
Yeah.
So that wasn't what dictated the campaign. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that we were an evil campaign. It was that we were a group of characters that acted like those characters would act. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, there were a lot of things that we did that, like the neutral evil rogue started a restaurant where they cooked and ate people.
Sure.
That's what her character, that's part of her character. It didn't dictate the campaign. It was just a facet of her character. And so, yeah, I feel like if we had gone in saying, hey guys, let's make an evil campaign, then it would have been so much different than just, this is a campaign. Oh, and a few of us are evil.
Yeah. And I mean, another interpretation of an evil campaign could just be, let's instead of rolling like the core races and stuff, maybe we can be an orc or a drow, or, maybe like you bring like monster races into the fold. Yeah. And like in that case, it'll still be similar where like, you're not necessarily going to go around like stabbing everybody, but your adventures might include raiding a human town or something like that.
Right.
But that, you could still have a nice cooperative time with that.
Yeah, sure.
I think.
If you make it about the fact that you're all monsters and such, that's going to lead to one type of a campaign. If you make it just a campaign where, well, I guess we're all monsters.
Yeah.
It's a normal campaign, but we're all monsters. Then that's going to lead to, I think, a different type of campaign.
Yeah.
So my issue is less that evil campaigns are bad. It's more if you approach it as, let's make an evil campaign.
Yeah.
That's a bad starting point. Mm-hmm. It's fine if that's the end result. But if that's what you start with, it's going to lead to cliches. It's going to lead to just bad characters.
Yeah. It's that kind of, it sets an evil tone. I don't know.
All right. I think that'll finish it for this question. You got anything else?
No.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. Well, so that'll do it for today. If anybody wanted to submit items or questions, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, or to download the episode, go to interpartyconflict.blogspot.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/interpartyconflict or on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict, and I'm trying to be more active on Twitter. I'm going to try to post something on at least one thing on Twitter every day, possibly more, but at least one thing, because I haven't really been using it. It's just been like every week I put up the episode, maybe once I'll post one other thing, but I want to be more active on Twitter because I think that can get us a lot more listeners, because we're always looking for more listeners.
Yeah, using like the hashtags and stuff like that can always help.
Exactly. So if you can, check us out on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube. Please rate, review, subscribe, even just tell a friend about us. Anything that you can do to get us more listeners is a way that you can help us out without without costing you anything other than a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And of course, I mentioned earlier that there's a PayPal donate button on our on the blog at the Blogspot site as well. So if you feel like going there, toss us $1 or $2, maybe more, maybe less, whatever you can give us, anything you can give us, we will put towards making the podcast better.
And I figure eventually we talked about doing the Patreon or something.
Yeah, I would like to get a Patreon, but I just at the moment I don't think we have enough listeners. And I've gotten a few words back from like sponsors, but the only ones that have gotten back to me, we would need like so many more listeners than we already do.
Sure.
So.
And like, if we did something like Patreon, we would want to have something to kind of give back.
Exactly. Yeah, we would love to have, if you guys have any suggestions on things that you can give us things that we can give you to make it more worth your while to contribute as well.
Just little incentives, things like that you might think of.
Sure.
We just we like doing this. We wanna keep doing this. We want to make it better and greater and things like that. So
absolutely. All right, and so as always, our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. Check them out; they're on Facebook as well. So Jeff, until next time.
Hey Gabe,
what?
Next time, let's do an evil podcast.
Jeff, that's a terrible idea.
Okay. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.